What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of FLOYD STREET'S Finest. I am your host, Jeff Greer, alongside Jack Grossman, the great producer, the great man, myth, the legend, all those things. And we are very excited to have you for another episode. And this time, we are going to do a wrap-up episode for the regular season. We're not trying to count any chickens before they hatch, but the regular season is over, so we're going to sum things up, and we'll see where this ACC tournament takes Louisville and everyone else in the field. Now, we're having some internet issues, so bear with us if we cut in and out at some point. Louisville did get absolutely demolished by a weird thunderstorm just a couple of days ago. My neighborhood has been perfectly fine, and yet we're having internet issues. What's that all about? But Jack, as you know, we are members of the Field of 68 Media Network. We always mention them every pod. Make sure you go find them on every platform. They're everywhere. They've got the nightly recap show that I always enjoy seeing clips from. And of course, this is the perfect time to tap in with the NCAA tournament now just around the corner, and the conference tournament's ready to go. And Jack, I've got to tell you, I know some people get a little annoyed with me because I'm a Pitt guy, Pitt alum, and I'm not. I swear I am not trying to rub it in any Louisville fans' face.
Is Pitt going to be in?
Pitt will get Pitt's. No, Pitt's in the tournament. Come on. Like, I've seen some people say that they might be a bubble team. They're not a bubble team. They're in the tournament. Now, are they going to get a bad seed? Are they going to be like a 10 seed, maybe an 11? Yeah. But come on, they're in the tournament. They've done more than enough to get into the tournament, even with some bad losses. I've seen much worse resumes get in the NCAA tournament. So I'm ready for Selection Sunday. Now,
I am
to tell you, Jack, I do think it wouldn't hurt if Pitt made sure that they didn't lose their first game. Let's just see how things go.
Who'd they draw?
I think it's Florida State and Georgia Tech, and then
you can't lose to one of those.
Can't lose. They've already lost. They already lost to Florida State this year, so they got to beat them. And then you play Duke in the quarterfinals. We'll see what happens. But nevertheless, I'm excited for the ACC tournament and, of course, Selection Sunday. So for Louisville fans, it's time to shift their focus just about. We'll talk a little bit about what it might look like if they win 5 games in 5 days to shock the world. But in the meantime, for all intents and purposes, it's starting to be that time where we start talking about wrapping up the season and looking into the offseason. Before we get into any of that, I got to tell you about our friends at myfancard.com. Louisville Cardinals fans need to know about fan cards. It's the only official Louisville debit card that gives you a chance to win tickets to games when you set up direct deposit. Learn more and sign up today at myfancard.com. That's myfancard.com, and use the referral code FLOYD. I really screwed that up. Use
Keep going.
The referral.
You want me to read it?
The referral code FLOYD. Jack, I turned into my mother for like a nanosecond, and she cannot talk. I love that lady to death. She cannot talk. But make sure you read the referral code FLOYD. That's myfancard.com, code FLOYD. I've got another one of those reads later on, and I know I'm going to nail it for you, Jack.
So let me, first of all, you can just send me the read if you want me to do it for you. And two, so let's get this straight. You butcher the read and then immediately throw your mom under the bus and blame her for you butchering the read.
If there's one thing that I do really, really well, it's throwing other people under the bus when I am the only person involved in the situation. My mom is a lovely lady.
But it sounds like she can't read a piece of paper.
Love her very much.
No. That's what I know about her because of you. That's what the listeners know about her now because of you. Jeff.
Well, she can read. She can read. What she struggles with is pronouncing words because of her absolutely just filthy New London, Connecticut accent. I mean, words that don't have R's have R's. And I got to tell you, some of the words, it's hard to even describe, but some of the words that you will hear my mom say, you're just like, I'm not sure what you were attempting to say there. But Jack, let's chat. Let's talk a little bit about this season. I know there's been a few times where little fans are like, do you have to? Are you sure? But I'm trying not to be. Um, overly optimistic. I'm trying not to be overly pessimistic. You know me pretty well by now, Jack, that I am trying to be just be as fair as possible and have a conversation about it. So let's start with a question that you kind of already were a little nervous about when I brought it up, and I will answer it first so that you can kind of tap in and zoom in on what you want to say. The word to sum up the regular season for Louisville basketball is one word. Okay. I will start, and I'm just going to say, I'm tapping into my Zach Galifianakis in The Campaign. The word I'm going to use is, yes, great movie. You better bring a broom, because this season was a mess, an absolute mess from start. Last spring, when they started whiffing on everybody they were trying to recruit, we kept hearing, and I was one who was taken for a walk by this. Oh, they're in great shape for this guy. They're in great shape for this guy. They're in great shape. They're in great shape. They're in great shape. Then you get to June, and they don't have anybody other than Brandon Huntley Hatfield, who was a nice addition on paper and has had some positive moments. Obviously, has been hurt for a while, but it's just not the same caliber that what they really needed was a game-breaking, game-changing guard. So I'm going to say mess, and I think that applies to the season in a variety of ways, from coaching and trying to catch their feet and catch their rhythm a little bit. I think it got better as the season progressed later on in the year. But we're talking about incremental improvements for my taste. And I think from a player standpoint, it's just clear that they were underprepared, but also the effort for a team that clearly was underprepared was not there. I mean, even if you're going out feeling like you're lost, you still should be diving for 50-50 balls and not rolling over and dying the minute a team goes on a run. So it got better. Again, I'm trying to be fair. It got incrementally better in the ACC play, especially the second half of it. But there were still a bunch of games where you're just like, these guys aren't in it. And that's just not good enough for a 31-game regular season in the ACC at a program that has won 3 national championships. So that is my word, mess. What do you got, Jack?
I'm going to lean into it. We already talked about your background with, Connecticut accents, all those things. I'm going to go into my background a little bit here for my word. And I'm going to go back to my grandparents on my mom's side.
Are you about to say hot brown?
No. Bronx, New York natives. New York
Jews. Okay. That was
yes.
the other option, and I chose the wrong one.
Yes, you did. So I'm going to go with oi for my word. Because there's we talked about this at the start of the year. Thank you. We had zero expectations for this Louisville team after, Kenny Payne, the staff kind of whiffing the transfer portal, not really getting the type of roster that you wanted for this team. But even with all that, we're like, okay, this team went 13-19 last year. That was a disaster. You feel like at least they're going to be playing for an actual head coach this year. They're going to be showing effort. That's going to be consistent. They're going to defend. And if nothing else, the baseline is probably winning a couple more games than you did last year, 13-19. And they didn't come close to that on pretty much any level. So when I look at the season, yes, again, as you said, slight increments of improvements as the year went along, but you started at such a basement there to where, did some individual guys get better? Yes. By the end of the day, you're not winning games. And despite, what Kenny Payne said after the Virginia game about talking about the quality of competition, this isn't the ACC that we're used to seeing. This isn't the type of league that traditionally is right up there with the Big East as being the best conference in the history of college basketball. This just isn't that league. especially at the bottom. And you were getting blown out by teams at that bottom, like Georgia Tech on the road, like the 2 Florida State games. And you keep going on and on. I don't want to pile on. So for me, my one word, if you're having me ask, is oi. Because as bad as we thought this season could have gone in the preseason, no one, including us who had as little expectations as anyone talking about it, could have predicted that it would be this bad.
Yeah. And just as a side note, Jack, how happy do you think Leonard Hamilton is that Notre Dame and Louisville have bottomed out? Because FSU has been awful.
Georgia Tech too.
Georgia Tech, but that, okay. But Florida State has been among the best teams in the league for years. And the last 2 years, last year was a struggle, but they were, I think, 17-14 or something like that. Even still in a season that you were like, okay, this is probably the basement for Florida State. And they produced what they're doing this year. And Louisville, 13-19 last year. You're like, this has to be the worst that they could possibly be. And they went. Here's something that I mentioned today to someone in the hallway. I was at my wife's office for a little bit today. Just I had to stop at her office. 4-27, Jack.
Yeah.
4-27.
It's unheard of.
We got into it during the season. You kind of get into, you're just used to you pull back from that. 4-27. And I'm not trying to pick on any individual school, but that's the type of record you expect to see at like Chicago State, Prairie View A&M,
Mississippi Valley State.
Yeah, Central Arkansas, teams that just historically have really struggled. That is wow.
And what's nuts is how quickly that kind of became a reality, because we went in and, as we said, the expectations of not a good team per se, but at least one that would like battle and stuff like that. But then they lose those first 3 games by 1 point each. And once that happened and you go to Maui, it's kind of like, oh, that's bad. Because you could kind of see the avalanche just start to unroll as that happened. And they had that stretch in late November, early December, where they were playing power conference teams every single game in the non-conference. You had a couple of ACC games thrown in there. And it's like that avalanche started falling, really going back to the Lenore-Rhine game.
And, that was a pretty significant
precursor of what's going to come.
Yep.
And they just could never stop that avalanche from getting out of control from that point to where, we sat here in mid-November pretty quickly after the start of the year saying, crap, if they don't beat, I think it was Wright State or App State, whichever one that third game was, like they may not win a game until Florida A&M. And of course, if you WKU right before then, but you start searching for that schedule and say, okay, where's this team actually going to get wins? And it's one thing to say that they're going to win 3, 4, 5 games, but it's another thing to actually live through it and watch the losing game after game after game and just do something that's so unprecedented for a program. As I butchered that word. There you go, Jeff. I get that for you. They're returning the favor a little bit, but so unprecedented for a program that is traditionally one of the 6, 7, 8 best programs in the country historically. It's shocking. Just absolutely unheard of for Louisville to go through a year like this.
Yeah.
And it's unacceptable. It is unacceptable.
It's unacceptable.
Yeah.
That's a great segue I want to do two different answers here. Best win and worst loss of the season. And I'm going to start with the worst loss, because I don't know why. I'm just going to start with the worst loss. For me, I kind of want to say, I know that people are going to be like, really? This is the one that you picked? I feel like that Syracuse game was early in the league schedule. And there's a couple, there was that stretch of 4 games that everyone's like, okay, you've got to figure they'll be competitive in these games. You could pick the Georgia Tech loss towards the end of the year on the road where they just didn't show up whatever. The Syracuse game, because of the way it finished, just frustrated me to no end and just showed how poorly drilled this team was, how poorly executing, how poor the team was at executing things. But to me, it kept coming back to this team has not been prepared for this situation. And you can't, you don't want to always compare, because comparing is everything's apples and oranges. The situations are different. There's caveats. There's all sorts of different things that are important inside the context of each team. But if you go to a Bellarmine basketball practice, and I know everyone in Louisville kind of rolls their eyes at this point, because this is what we all point to in Louisville as like what it should look like. You will see Doug Davenport and the rest of the support staff working for Scotty Davenport literally hand the ball to their point guard and say, put 2:15 on the clock, and the team, the red team is down by 4 to the black team with 2:17 to go, play. And they stop them and they coach them through certain situations. Now, I have not been invited to. I've asked a bunch earlier in the year to come to practices, and what that was just not. It never really. It was a friendly response, but it never really was. It was always an I'll check and then nothing else. So I don't know if they practice that at Louisville. They say they practice for 3 hours, so I would hope that might come up at some point. But teams that know what to do in those situations, yeah, they've played through them in real life, but they've also been drilled on them, and they've been talked through what to do in those situations. And then they go and they watch film of practice breaking down those situations and talk through it. And it was clear, like you mentioned, those 3 early season losses. It was clear that they just did not know what to do in those situations. It was frenetic. It was unorganized, disorganized. And so the Syracuse game, to me, just for some reason, that one game has stuck with me. But Jack, I'm going to tell you the best win. Okay. I think everyone thinks I'm going to pick a different game.
Oh, so you're going to leave the easy one for me.
I'm going to leave you the easy one. The best win for Louisville this season was the only game on their schedule that they could not afford to lose. They played a horrible game against Florida A&M, and they won. If they had lost to Florida A&M, Jack, I don't think we're having this, you got to keep them conversation. 3-28 with a loss to Florida A&M is a whole lot different than 4-27 with a.
I disagree with that.
I don't know. They're one of the worst teams in college basketball.
I feel you, but if they hadn't beaten Western Kentucky the game before and they lose that game,
that's fair.
Then you sit
different
there and
context.
Say, holy crap, they are not going to win a game this entire season.
Yes,
but because they
beat Western Kentucky, Jack.
But like, are we really sitting here and feeling any different about this team? They're 3-28 versus 4-27.
If they lost to Florida A&M, that's like saying you failed. With all due respect to FAMU, I'm not trying to be a jerk. I feel like that is saying you failed like addition, like you failed addition in math class. I mean, that is like the most, for a Louisville program, that is a base win. Like, should have been comfortable, barely won, but that's okay. But I think to me, yeah, the Clemson win was nice for Louisville. Great. I think that's a team that is maybe or maybe not going to the NCAA tournament, but for a long while there was among the better ones in the league. But I'm going with the game they could not, of all of the games they won, of the 4 games they won, the one that they absolutely had to win was Florida A&M, and they did it. So I'm going to give them credit for that. Now you go. Best win, worst loss, and my wife is texting me here, so I promise I'm listening. I'm just responding.
First of all, if you lose to Louisville in this season, then you don't deserve to make the tournament. Like that should just be a rule. So Clemson, you should not make the tournament. Louisville's not even, their only bad loss. They've had multiple quad 3, quad 4 losses, but you lose to Louisville, you should not make the tournament. That's just, let's get that out of the way. really. But I do disagree with you on the Florida A&M thing because I sit here and yeah, you're also talking about a team that lost to, we love Bellarmine here and a lot of people around the city do, but you're talking to a team that lost to Bellarmine, Wright State, Appalachian State, and Lipscomb already. Does anyone feel significantly? I get it. Those are all much better programs.
Florida A&M is
no, Florida A&M is quite literally
maybe 2 tiers.
They are 358th in Ken Pom. They are quite literally one of the 5 worst teams in the country.
Mm-hmm.
But does the normal sports fan in Louisville or around the country realize the difference between Florida A&M and Wright State or App State?
Yeah,
probably not. They view them.
That's a fair question.
Even though I'm with you, the fact that those other teams are in a different stratosphere than Florida A&M, they still just view it as directional school, cupcake, whatever word you want to throw in there. So because of the fact they had won the Western game the game before, I'm not with you on that. Would they have lost that Western game? Then yes, I would have agreed with you. As far as best ones go, I'll actually go in a different direction. The best one was the fact that even though it says number 1 coaches poll team, the fact that they just got to hang some sort of banner for the 2013 team, because that's been such a talking point throughout.
Wow, so it's a non-game win.
It's a non-game win.
I love that. Okay, you could have even more than I did.
Yes, but that just event of getting to honor that team and for Louisville fans just to be like, okay, this is what it used to be like when things were good around here, and just to kind of reminisce
real casual
a little
reminder.
Bit. Yes.
10 years ago, they won a national championship. 10 years later, they finished 4-27.
Yes, but just to have that feeling of, okay, remember the good times, big crowd at the Center, all those types of things to where like you can just kind of have that moment. It feels like the best moment that Louisville basketball's had probably since the COVID season that the tournament got canceled in. That's probably the best moment Louisville basketball's had since then. And yes, Louisville did validate that by actually winning the game, which was, a big deal. And if you're going to win one game all year, I think that's the one you had to win because they were honoring that team. Because we all remember how pissed off people were when they fell flat against Notre Dame when they retired Russ Smith's jersey last season. So the fact that they were able to rise to the occasion and actually win that game against an actual, okay team in Clemson, like you do give them credit for that. If anything else this year, I would say that. As far as the worst loss goes, I'm with you on the Syracuse one from the standpoint of that's where you kind of learned, okay, they haven't gotten better at late game scenarios from early in the year where they blew it. But I'm going to go all the way back to, I'm choosing 2, but Wright State and Appalachian State.
Okay.
Those were the 2 games I felt like that's set in stone what type of year this was going to be for U of L. Yeah. Because Bellarmine,
Wright State, Jack was bad.
Yeah, because
that was brutal.
Because Bellarmine, there's so much respect for that program locally, and as there should be, to where like they lost to Bellarmine, and people weren't really that mad because they were like, okay, that's Bellarmine, Scotty D, great program, culture, all that stuff. I felt like there was a level of forgiveness for that. I also won't name names, but the amount of people at the ESPN Louisville studio that had Bellarmine from our friends at Bet Rivers in that game was phenomenal, including me. Yeah. I had Bellarmine +9 and money line in that game, which was great. Yeah. But Wright State and Appalachian State, those were the 2 games. The fact that they lost both of them. And 2, the way that they lost both of those games. Wright State having the lead and then turning the ball over, not calling timeout, not fouling when you had fouls to give, and giving up a buzzer beater. Then App State, when L. Ellis hits what we thought was a buzzer beater, but he didn't get the shot off in time. I felt like those 2 losses were just so excruciating for that team. And the fact that they had to go to Maui right after that and get boat raced by Arkansas, Texas Tech, and Cincinnati. I think that to me just kind of set in stone what this year was going to be and how bad it was. Because if they win one of those 2 games, I'm not going to sit here and say they were going to win like 15 games or anything like that. But you would have something positive to cling on to early in the season to get through Maui, get through that Maryland game to where you would get to a point to where you felt like, okay, maybe you don't just feel like you're getting absolutely embarrassed every single time you take the floor, which is what happened in late November into early December. I feel like if they win one of or both of those games, maybe it becomes a different season. But because, as you noted on earlier, they were just so bad at end of game scenarios, the few times they had chances to close out games, that they choked. In those two games, and they kind of set the stage for what ended up happening the rest of the year.
Okay, fair enough. I will say, you know what? For me, the Wright State game, the timeout, the not fouling up when you were leading and you had a foul to give, that to me, very early on, that's coaching.
Yeah,
that's coaching.
And in the App State game too.
Yep,
it's coaching.
It's coaching.
Yeah, because before LLs had the ball, App State had it. They ended up missing the free throws, but they had the ball about 20 seconds left, and Louisville let like 8, 9, 10 seconds off the clock before they fouled because they didn't know that they had to foul. And that falls back on the coaching.
That's coaching. That's coaching. I will say one other game, and this is I'll just say this really briefly, quickly. The Pittsburgh game in February at Pitt was what felt
I don't understand why people are so mad about the game. That game.
Well, it's the way.
I know we've talked about this before.
It's the way they lost, Jack. They lost by 34 points in the sequence of the season. Guy misses a dunk. Teammate gets the offensive rebound. Still nobody is back other than LLS. Find the guy who missed the dunk in the corner. Still none of your bigs have even crossed half court yet. Guy hits a three. That singular moment maybe was the most frustrating effort moment of the season.
I'll give you one. I'll give you one more. It was in Maui. I believe it was the Arkansas game where there was a loose ball, and I think it was L. Ellis and Mike James, who are two of the bright spots on the season, ironically, but I believe it was L. Ellis and Mike James. It was Kamari Lands, but they were the two closest guys to the loose ball, and it wasn't even close. Like, there wasn't an Arkansas guy like maybe 10 feet within either of them, and they both run away from the ball, and an Arkansas guy picks it up and runs in for a breakaway dunk. That's what I would choose.
No, that's tough. It was a tough year.
Yeah, it was a very tough year. Yes.
Well, let's do these next two ones quickly so that we don't end up doing a 2-hour podcast, because I know we can't. We're both very much capable of that. We know who the MVP of the season is for Louisville. It's L. Ellis. There's no question about that. Somehow that guy has managed to have an incredible season. All things considered, shot 81% from the free throw line, made 58 threes. His 3-point percentage wasn't great, but he had to take a lot of threes. Shot 48% from the field, was excellent in drawing fouls. His assist rate was really high, one of the best in the country, at 61st in the country. And for the amount of usage, I'm just looking at his KenPom numbers, the amount of usage that he had, possessions, shot percentage, all that stuff, for him to have the year that he had with the amount of workload and the amount of minutes that he played, incredible. So second MVP though, Jack, I'm going to go, I'm on the record for saying that I think Mike James is the second best player on the team. I'm on the record as saying that. I think he had a great first year. I'm gonna swerve though. I'm gonna say that the improvement of JJ Train to see that there was for 2 long years, and is it 2 or 3
this is his third year.
For 2 long years, he was the most talked about player who did not play a whole lot. And his freshman year,
it was a little Dante Allen-esque.
It was a little Dante Allen-esque.
Minuscule Dante Allen, yes.
He's in state and all that stuff. And I really like the improvements that he made this year. Showed some confidence, showed what he can do. And I think has played himself into a spot where, could he go be really good at a place like Western Kentucky or somewhere like that? Yeah, he could. Eastern Kentucky, those places. He would be an effective player for them and probably a starter. But I think he played himself into a spot where you're like, I think Louisville should probably try to keep a spot for him. And I know that, the phrasing of that will upset some people because they're on scholarship, but I think he earned a spot with Louisville for the next season. The newcomer of the year for me is Mike James. Easy choice. He's not really a newcomer. He's a red shirt guy coming back, but knowing the work that he put in to get back after being at the practice, I will never forget this. I was at the practice where he tore his Achilles. To know, one, how bad an Achilles tear can be, and two, to know Mike a little bit from talking to him a few times. Great kid, works his tail off, and another guy who I think has really played his way into a spot where you're like, you got to have this guy on your team, and you would think that he will be part of Louisville finding its footing down the line, because he's a guy who wins moments. I can't say that he's a winner in college because he's on a 4-27 team. But he won a lot of games when he was before he got to college. But Mike James wins a lot of moments. He hustles consistently, has proven through the course of the year. I know we have a couple examples otherwise, but is a hustling player, works hard, and has shown that he can help you win or help you be competitive in the ACC. So that's my newcomer of the year and my second MVP. And I said I wouldn't take too long, and it took 6 minutes. So Jack, you're up.
I'll be incredibly quick because I have the same exact two. So, JJ and Mike James, those are the two. I'll throw an honorable mention for newcomer of the year for Kamari Lands, literally just because you talk about big moments. He was the one that hit the three against Georgia Tech to kind of seal that game for Louisville's first ACC one of the year. Plus, if you want to look at an individual stat, Kamari Lands, 47 of 52, 90% at the free throw line. Pretty damn good. Okay. Pretty damn good. So we'll give him that. He's still a guy that I think has a lot of potential. And I'm hoping, anyways, that he'll be a part of whatever the heck this team looks like next year.
At his size?
Yeah. He has all the tools.
52 free throws in a 31-game season is not enough. You got to get in there and get fouled.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that another time.
But also 52 free throws is enough of a sample size where you can be like, if you
get
like,
this guy's a good free throw shooter.
That dude's a good free throw shooter.
That's a lot of free throws. Yeah. Hey, Jack, I've got a question for you. Are you looking for a debit card built specifically for Louisville Cardinals fans?
Yes.
Then you need to know about Fan Cards. They've got a Louisville prepaid MasterCard that gives you chances to win tickets to Cardinals football and men's basketball games. Plus, you can snag a Louisville MasterCard gift card for family and friends too. Just visit myfancard.com to learn more and use the referral code FLOYD, FLOYD, when you sign up. That's myfancard.com, referral code FLOYD, and order the ultimate prepaid card for true Louisville fans today. All right. There you go. There we go. All right. Thank you. Let's shift gears here. I'm looking at my little schedule for the show. We've got three. I've got two off-season ones, and then I've got the ultimate prognostication one to finish out the episode. Jack, you can go first on this one. What is your very first move in the off-season if you are Kenny Payne?
You beg Al Ellis to come back, because there's a lot that needs to happen for this team to improve. I know the what's his name, Dennis. I don't want to say Dennis Gates. I know it's not Dennis Gates. The recruit, the 5-star, the big man that just decommitted from Minnesota. Dennis Evans. There we go. I know Dennis Evans is a very big fish in the pond right now. Obviously, I mean, there is a little bit of irony that he's visiting U of L's campus this weekend when the ACC tournament's still going on, which shows how much confidence there is in an ACC tournament run for this current team. But hey, I guess you're getting a head start potentially. And if schedule conflicts come up, that's a very good unexpected problem to have if you're Kenny Payne and Louisville in that standpoint. So that's a big one. But for me, Al Ellis is the dude, the one guy that you can point in game out and say he's been there consistently, giving effort, playing well. And yes, he hasn't always shot the ball well, but that's because the usage rate, as you noted, is so incredibly high. You need guards if you're Kenny Payne, and you need more than one guard you're going to need more than just El Ellis. But if you already have El Ellis back on the team, I know he said on this very podcast that he wasn't coming back next year. You make him say no as many times as possible before you give up on that, because he's a dude that I feel like you could actually build around. He's gone from early in the year, was like, okay, probably good scorer, bad team, kind of Monte Ellis-ish to compare to an NBA player, to where you look at it in some of the games he's had, it's like, okay, I feel like because I think there was the quote that said if he comes back to college, it would be at Louisville. He wouldn't be named the transfer portal.
That's what he said that.
But like if he were to enter the transfer portal, I feel like that's one dude that like everyone would want, that type of guy. Yeah. Like that would be, he would be one of the more coveted transfers in the portal. So yes, you're still going to have to add guys in addition to him if he were to come back. But when you already have, when there's all this talk is you got to nail the portal, you got to nail the portal, you got to nail the portal. There's one dude on this roster that would be one of those coveted types of transfers that you're trying to land that's already there. Maybe you should try and prioritize keeping him first.
Yeah, keep him out of the portal. Maybe it's a portal win in a different way. All right, well, that's cool. That's a good choice, and wasn't where my head was, but I'm always thinking. I guess I'm just thinking more 10,000-foot view. But I think that's a really good, pragmatic, good choice, because if you can get him kind of a floor managing point guard to work with, who can shoot it a little bit, who can take advantage of Ellis's driving ability and catch and shoot, you could be onto something. Or you find a shooting guard who can just catch and shoot, who can spot up for you. I think that's a good shout. Here's my choice, okay? I think that Kenny Payne needs to announce the morning after Louisville presumably loses in the ACC tournament, that the Louisville Cardinals are open for business. You've got to you've got to put the bat signal into the sky and say, no more of this. We don't want kids coming here just for NIL. You can say that in recruiting. You can talk to them about it, but publicly, man, open for business.
You know how he should announce it? He should just tweet out the Johnny Manziel money meme.
Yes. Yeah. There you go. I love that. I think that, the game is changing so rapidly, and you don't want to, maybe that sounds naive to people to just say we're open for business and all of a sudden, it's like now you print money and you're good. But I keep coming back to this, Jack. 2 years ago, less than 2 years ago, we were just starting to talk about how the NCAA was not prepared for NIL stuff. The state legislatures were starting to do things. The NCAA had their legislation written up, and then they started to have issues trying to get to an agreement point on it, and eventually they just decided to do nothing and let the state
NCAA of them.
Yes. So NCAA, and it's crazy that that was already a year and a half ago. It feels like everything has changed so quickly, and maybe that's the social media age, and I think the pandemic of all of us just being glued to our phones even more than we already were for 6 months or however long it was that people were kind of keeping to themselves. But it just feels like everything is very rapidly changing, and the inability to embrace NIL, or not, I should say inability, but the desire to be the opposite, really, I can't quantify it. I can't specifically say player X didn't come to Louisville because of the NIL rhetoric that Kenny Payne had. But you got to figure that that's going to be a key part. Even if you think it's a mercenary, you got to get some dudes to come here to help you win some games. You got to win a lot more games next year. And then look, after that, go get you your 3-year kid who wants to be at Louisville and all that stuff. But this coming season, you got to go find some mercenaries who can help you out.
I'll compare it to this, and it's not apples to apples per se, but I remember for those who don't know, I'm an Indiana graduate. Going into my senior year, which was the 2019-20 season, there was a lot of talk about Archie Miller and his recruiting class. And there were a lot of people that were excited about Trey Galloway and Anthony Leal kind of being the linchpins of the recruiting class. And the thought process was, okay, these are two guys you can bring in, you can develop for 2-3 years, and they'll be really good by the end of that. And my counter argument was, because Archie Miller was on the hot seat already at that point, I was like, when you're in that spot, you can't bring in developmental guys and have that be your entire recruiting class. Yeah. You got to get in some dudes that are going to be here immediately. And guess what happened on the IU side? Where 3 years later, Archie's not the coach anymore, and Trey Galloway's become a pretty good basketball player. That has potential to get even better. But Archie Miller doesn't get to reap the benefits of that. Mike Woodson does. I get it, a little different year 4 between year 3 and 4 at that point. This is between years 1 and 2 for Kenny Payne. But for how bad this year went, there's going to be real pressure on Kenny Payne to not be a national title contender or anything, but to put a much more respectable product out on the floor. To where, yes, if you get some guys that are some developmental pieces that can be good in a couple years, that's nice, but that's got to be rounding out the recruiting class or the transfer class. That can't be the entire class at this point. You need dudes, which the NIL is the number one way these days of how you can get that, but you need dudes that can come in at day one and be ballers. And that's,
Jack, I think the guys who we're talking about as like program guys, and I love, trust me, I love a program player who can play well for you for years. I feel like those are the guys already on the roster. The guys like Mike James, the guys like JJ Traynor,
Kamari Lands, those dudes.
Kamari Lands, possibly. I'm really intrigued to see how the wing position plays out, because we just named 2.5 guys, if you want to put Traynor in that conversation as a wing stretch forward type.
And the 2 freshmen you have are also
freshmen
wings.
Coming in are also wings. Glenn, I know, is also kind of that hybrid forward type. There's a lot of competition there. And so
when you're 4-27, I'd argue that's a good thing to have.
That's great. You need all the bodies you can get. But yes, I am fascinated to see how quickly things develop. But I don't think there's any question that a lot has to change. For me, you got to be like, I know people, and I agree with this. I said it. I know that clip a couple, like 2 months ago, like everyone was like, went viral. People were not viral, but people.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah. But Louisville fans were talking a lot about it. And that's cool. That's the point of the podcast. About NCAA tournaments in Louisville. Louisville should be in the NCAA tournament every season. That's like
a given.
Yeah, it's a given. Even if you're Syracuse level 3 years in a row, you're an 11 seed, Louisville should be in the tournament. Now, I think for next year, I will say that I think, considering everything that has happened, you got to go ahead and say, look, if Kenny Payne gets Louisville like in the NIT discussion, that is a significant step forward after this season. Now, I don't think I'm not trying to lower the expectations or anything like that, but I do think that is a conversation where, look, if Louisville goes, they play 31 games. If Louisville goes 18-13 next year or 17-14 after this season, I feel like a lot depends on how it gets to that point. Of course, this is a hypothetical, but in a vacuum, just a 13, 14, 15 win season better than it was the year before, improvement, 13, 14, 15 win improvement. That's a lot of wins, and that's hard to do in college basketball. I feel like that would be a step in the right direction. Is it enough? No. But I do think it's a step. It would be considered a step in the right direction.
I'll put it this way, because not all NIT teams are built equally.
Correct.
Like, there's a lot of different ways to put that. Like, if they're a game or two over 500 and they're like a 5 seed in the NIT, that's a lot different than being, like you said, 18, 13, 19, and 12.
Like a bubble team that doesn't get in.
Yeah, like I feel like if you're a bubble team and you just don't get into the tournament, I feel like, while year in, year out, that's not what people expect. Given everything, I think people would be okay with that. But I think that's kind of the minimum of where it needs to be. I don't know.
Interesting. Okay.
I
So
think
we're slightly off because
yeah,
I think if they go 17 and 14, they're not a bubble team.
Well, I mean, let's look at some teams that are 17 and 14 right now, though. You say that like Michigan is 17 and 14 and in the first 4 out right now. And like
but they're in the Big Ten, Jack. They're playing.
The Big Ten's not good. I mean, it's better than the ACC, but that's not saying
it's
much.
better than the ACC.
Yeah,
it's better. And Michigan Michigan might be a tough example because don't they have some decent non-conference wins too?
I can pull it up real quick. They lost to Kentucky. They got blasted by, I believe.
I mean, they're 38th. This is crazy, Jack. Michigan, and I've been talking about this with a couple of my friends, and yes, this is one of the dorkiest things I've ever said. ACC doesn't have anybody in the top 30 in Ken Palm. Duke is the highest rated team. The ACC stinks, okay? Miami, which I think Miami and Virginia are the 2 best teams in the ACC.
I think Miami's the team that I feel like can make like a Sweet 16.
Because of the guards.
I love their guards. Yeah,
they're combined. Those 2 teams are 47 and 12. Virginia's 23 and 6, and Miami's 24 and 6. Michigan is right behind Miami in the Ken Palm ratings. It's 36, 37, 38. Virginia, Miami, Michigan, and Michigan is 17 and 14.
Also, do you want to hear Michigan's best non-conference win?
Pittsburgh.
It is Pittsburgh, so they don't have a good non-conference win.
Okay, but they have they do have some good conference wins, though. They've got some top 30 conference wins.
They beat Michigan State at home, which was a good win. They beat Maryland at home, but Maryland doesn't win anywhere on the road. And they beat Northwestern at home.
That's decent. That's decent. Yeah. That's decent. Jack, here's your problem. Here's your problem.
Yeah.
You're an Indiana guy.
You're talking to someone who was at the Indiana-Michigan game.
Listen to me. You are an Indiana guy. You watch a crap load of Big Ten basketball, and you have gotten to March 7th or 6th, and you are done with the Big Ten. That's okay, but I'm telling you, that is a good league. It's a very good league.
I would have.
It's a good league.
I would have 2. No, Big East number 2. I would have the Big 12, the Big East, then the Big 10.
Okay. All right.
And then. But here's my thing with the Big Ten, and I know we're way off the rails now.
We are.
Everyone's going to go nuts again when the Big Ten doesn't get like more than 1, maybe 2 teams in the second weekend. But I'm going to look at it.
It's going to happen.
Yeah, it's going to happen because you look at how they're seen. And we do this every year, like the last 3 years. There's been a couple Big Ten teams, like Ohio State a couple years ago, and they lost to Oral Roberts. Illinois lost to Houston last year in a 4-5 game. But you look at the Big Ten this year. Purdue's going to be, I think Fielding the 68 has them as the last 1 seed right now. Mm-hmm. Indiana is going to be a 4 or 5 seed. Mm-hmm. Other than that, every Big Ten team that makes the tournament is going to be like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So when the Big Ten gets like 9 teams and 7 of them lose in the first weekend, that's what they were all supposed to do. They're all crappy seeds.
But Jack, just to stay on this for one last point, and then it's my podcast, so I get to move on after I make this great point.
It's a fair point.
How many teams are in the Big Ten? 14.
14.
Right?
Yes.
12 of those 14 are in the top 72 in Ken Palm.
Yeah, no, it's a mid-league. There's a lot of mediocre teams. That's what it is.
To me, that is a good league.
It's a fine league.
Tough league.
It's not as good as it's been the last few years.
If you go to the ACC, outside of the top 7 teams, no one is inside the top 77. And there are 6 teams in the triple digits, including a team that, sorry, Louisville fans, is 284th in Ken Palm. So I'm gonna close the door.
I feel like that's a different argument, though. I'll shut up. But whether the Big Ten is a great league is a different argument. I
didn't say it's a great league. I said it's a good, tough league.
It's a fine league.
It's a fine league. All right,
yes.
We'll settle on it's a fine league. All right. Your offseason checklist. I feel like we've kind of gotten over that a little bit. I think you've got to do a thorough analysis of your staff and figure out I'm not going to sit here and say do a thorough analysis and figure out if it has worked. It hasn't worked. So you got to look at your staff and you got to figure out what changes need to be made. I don't want to call for anybody's job because I'm not there every day. But I do think that there's some significant changes that need to be made to the preparation and the process by which this team gets ready to play games. I think they need someone who has a lot of experience as a head coach. I don't want to rag on Danny Manning, but you need to go find someone who is a proven winner as a head coach at a high level, not just getting in 1 year at Wake Forest and having success at a smaller level. You got to go find people who have won at a high level and can help you make your practices more efficient and make your teams more prepared for actual basketball games. So that's one thing. I think obviously got to improve everywhere, especially at guard. You need a couple guards, depending on what Ellis's decision is. If he goes, you got to find at least 2, if not 3 guys who all you could say they should all be starters. I think you need to find obviously a star out of that 3. You need to go find another guy who has been on a winning team. I don't care what level they play at. They need to be a winner. They need to make shots for you. They could be your third guard, but you need experience in this team desperately. A guy like a Jared West. I know we've talked about this. A guy like a Jared West who has won games at another program, and if nothing else, is a competitor and a veteran, make you some shots. And then we mentioned Dennis Evans. I don't know if he's the answer, but you need a difference-making big guy. You need a difference-making big guy because Louisville's big guys this year, we all were expecting them to take a huge leap forward with the tutelage that they were going to be given between Kenny Payne, who is highly, highly respected and still is for his work that he's done with some of those big name, big guys who went through UK, and Danny Manning, who is one of the best big guys in the history of college basketball, and had an NBA career, all those things. There's so many accolades that you could say, and I think everyone thought, oh, this is going to be a great year to be a big guy at Louisville, and I feel like that position group, the centers, and to a large degree the power forwards, were the most, by far, the centers, by far the most disappointing position that Louisville had. I mean, it was shocking how much they absolutely shrunk this season from the spotlight. It just did not deliver in any way, shape, or form for long stretches. There were a couple blips here and there where they had good games, but yikes.
Because that's where that team was supposed to be built on.
That's what they were supposed to be able to do. If nothing else, you throw it in the post and you win games 52-50.
And you just grab a bunch of rebounds.
Yeah, and that was the opposite of what happened. It was the worst part of the team outside of turnovers, was the ability to get on the glass and to score in the paint, which is a real question
disappointment
in the next season. Yeah. So those are probably the biggest ones. Did I miss anything, Jack, or is that am I good there?
Well, I know the lottery still has to come up, so Louisville has good chances of getting the number 1 overall pick. So you got to draft well. Yeah. They
got to draft well.
Yes, you got to draft well, but no, it's about just getting talent, and we talk about the big guys and Dennis Evans, all that stuff, but you need guards and playmakers to win games in this day and age. And whether Ellis comes back or not, you don't have nearly enough of those types of guys, and you have to prioritize. As you noted, you need to get guards, playmakers, dudes that can create shots for themselves and others and hit open jump shots. That's what Louisville needs more than – they need a lot of stuff, but they need that more than absolutely anything else.
Yep. Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I know I've said this before – I get in trouble sometimes when I say this because, this podcast is on Apple Pods and all those places. So maybe there are kids out there who listen. You need like multiple MFers on this team. I said a few years ago they needed 1 to mix it up with this with the group that eventually went 13-19. They need multiple MFers, and they don't have them on. They don't have them on their current roster. I get the vibe from watching Caleb Glenn that he's got a little bit of that to his game, but you need to go find some real MFers to come in and jolt this team, because a guy like Mike James is a great example of a guy who is like an Energizer bunny with the level of energy that he gives and effort that he can give you. I've seen it in practice. We've seen it in most of the games. He's gotten a lot better as the season's gone along. But he's not a ferocious dude. He is just an energy guy. He's like a Dwayne Sutton. He's like a guy who's just going to keep working, keep working, keep working. And Sutton was such I don't want to say he was underrated, because I think people truly appreciated what Dwayne Sutton was and became for Louisville. But he wasn't a get in your face, fight you kind of guy. He was just kind of a relentless, annoying, if you're on the other team, guy who got a lot of rebounds and really hustled his butt off.
He was a dude that did what it needed to help the team win. That's like because I went to high school with him. So at Manual. So I remember watching him in the high school days, and he would jump center and play point guard.
Yep.
and like he would be in the post one possession, he'd be handling the ball the next possession, he'd be guarding the other team's best player on defense. He did literally everything. And that's something that that's just the character trait that he had of, I'm going to do whatever the heck it takes for my team to win and help out in whatever role that's needed for me to play. Yeah. And you need those types of guys, but then you also need, and it's of course it's easy to say because he's still in the NBA a decade later, but you need the Montrezl Harrell type of MFer, not necessarily the NBA type, but just the dude like in Ellis Miles maybe is a better example of that to go a little bit deeper, to where you just need the dude that's willing to punch a try if you need it.
Yeah. Might get in a fight in practice.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm a big fan, and I think Dwayne Sutton will long go down as one of my favorite guys to watch play basketball, just because I love that kind of player. I know he'd probably scoff at this, and Louisville fans will say, come on, he was our guy. But he really, I think, would have been a perfect fit for those like mid to late 2000 Pitt teams that just scratched and clawed every game. I mean, he would have been perfect.
He would have been perfect.
Like, how great would Dwayne? But even with Louisville, I mean, just how great would Dwayne Sutton have been in the Big East? That would have been so much fun to watch.
If you would have put him like on the Terrence Williams, Earl Clark team.
There you go. That's an interesting addition.
Yeah, that would be an interesting one. I think I got a better one to where I think he would fit in better, because he would have provided a role for that team, as great as they were, didn't really have. If you put him on the 2005 Final Four team.
Okay.
Because they were, obviously they had Ellis Miles, who was the I'm going to fight you in practice type of dude. He brought the toughness. But really, other than that position, it was really more of a finesse team. I mean, Francisco Garcia, obviously All-American, phenomenal. Taekwon Dean, Larry O'Bannon, all incredible players. But I think Sutton would have brought a different type of dynamic to that.
Yeah.
That I think would have been interesting. But yeah.
It's a good topic. All right, then, Jack. This is the type of thing that I hate doing, because a year from now, if somebody's got a clip archive that they keep, that they're taking receipts, we will be potentially on it, depending on how you answer this question. Where do you think Louisville men's basketball is 31 games into the 2023-24 season next year? 31 games in the bank, regular season's over. We don't know who's coming in the offseason yet entirely, other than a couple of freshmen. What do you think?
It's impossible to say, because we have no idea what the hell the roster is.
That's why it's fun. That's why it's
going to change so many times. But I'll put it this. I'll phrase it this way: if Kenny Payne is going to be successful at Louisville, and this isn't a new take, he needs to, really knock out of the park this offseason. And if he does that, then this is a team that I feel like will be on the could be good enough to be on the bubble for the NCAA tournament and not make it. So I'll say, if Kenny Payne does everything he needs to do this offseason, then he'll have a team that'll be like a 2 seed in the NIT.
But Jack, here's my question. I'm gonna hold you to this now. You just threw out an if he does this. I'm not asking you that.
If he doesn't do that, then
we don't know. I'm saying right now, do you think he will do that? And then where do you think we are in a year based on whether or not you think that is going to happen?
Damn it, Jeff, I'm trying to be positive here.
I know you are.
Realistically, he just hasn't proven it yet.
Yeah. That's my thought.
Yeah.
That's my thought.
Until he potentially lands dudes out of the portal otherwise, I just don't expect it to happen. And if that doesn't happen, then you're going to be in a spot to where I don't think you'll be 4-27 again. But because, the ACC, we have no idea how good or bad the ACC is going to be next year, but I have a feeling it's not going to be back to what it traditionally is, even if it is a little bit better. But also, you'll probably have a friendlier non-conference schedule than what you had this year, to where you'll at least win a few more games. But I don't know if Kenny Payne doesn't do what he needs to this offseason. I don't know if they're over 500 or if they're particularly close to over 500.
Yeah. I'm gonna say, and I'll put it this way: we reserve the right after the portal gets really going. We can change our minds here on this because obviously we're doing this blind. I have not seen remotely enough in the last 6 months, really the last year, to think that it's going to drastically get better. Now, the Dennis Evans news is exciting. I think if it plays out the way people are saying it will. But I feel like we've been down this road before, so we'll see. I'm going to say they will have a losing season next year, and I don't know. I feel more confident in saying that than I say they'll be an NIT or a bubble team. So
let me turn the tables on you here, make you uncomfortable now.
Okay, I'm not. I never get uncomfortable. My wife is texting me, which could potentially be an uncomfortable thing.
If Louisville goes under 500 next year, does Kenny Payne get a third year?
If they're over 500?
Under 500.
Probably not.
I'm with you.
I think it depends on how, look, if they go, 31 game season, if they go 15-16.
That's a lot different than 10-21.
Yes. If they go 10-21, I think he probably would know it. I think everyone would know. They're going to figure out a way to amicably part ways. But if they're a lot, if they're 15-16 or something like that, or 16-15, I think that's a really tough decision. I mean, that to me, for lack of a better thought, is how it feels when you're almost the cold water in the pool is almost up to your waist and you got to make a decision. Am I going to dive in here or am I going to get out of this pool because it's a little too cold?
How do you feel about because if they are like 16-15 next year, I can already see the discussion of, well, they won 12 more games than the year before.
That honestly, Jack, that type of, if they go 16-15 next year, Kenny Payne, mark it down, will be in discussions for ACC Coach of the Year. That's just the way the media voting.
Well, I mean, Jerry Stackhouse just won SEC Coach of the Year for a team that's not going to make the NCAA tournament.
And I say that as someone who will always defend picking Josh Pastner a few years ago because his team was so bad the year before. I forgot what the improvement was.
Right, but I'm talking about the Louisville basketball fan base.
Yeah. Oh no, they'll be furious. It's not good enough. I think most of the fan base is already out. I think a lot of people will probably turn from frozen to lukewarm or cooling. You get a big name recruiter too in the fold. That's the wonder of college basketball is like in college football. Oh, you got a prize new prospect. Cool. You have 21 other positions that you have to worry about. Basketball, you have 5 people on the floor. You get 3 program changing prospects, whether they're transfers or reclaimed prospects out of high school. All of a sudden your team's complexion is very different and you go from what they were to potential. And I think it's easier to flip the switch and get people excited. And let's be honest, people want to be excited.
Yeah.
People want to be excited. So I don't know. I think at this time next year, I think Josh Hurt is going to be in a really, really, really difficult position. That's my hunch. For Louisville's sake, and especially for Kenny Payne's sake, I hope I am wrong. And if I am, great. Use this clip somewhere if you want to destroy me. That's fine. But I'm not confident.
Before we wrap up, I do have to ask you this, and credit to whoever put this in. I think it was Saturday's show for a Field of 68 After Dark. Someone asked the question in the chat, where would Louisville be seated in the NCAA tournament if they win the ACC tournament this week?
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. They would be probably a 16 seed in a play-in game.
Yes, I agree. Which is just so bizarre to think of, which I think is the right thing to do there.
Yeah.
But also,
they'd be 9-27. But they would have like
they would win more games this week than they had the entire rest of the season.
But in that scenario, I mean, they're beating a handful, probably two.
Boston College, North Carolina. I'd have to pull up the bracket for the rest of it, but
they would be beating at minimum 2, if not 3 NCAA tournament teams, and 2 of those 3 would probably be teams that are going to get solid seeds this season. So yeah, you'd have a better resume than pretty much just in terms of the quality of win than the teams that usually end up getting stuck in the play-in game.
All right.
But they were 9-27. Their computer numbers would be atrocious.
So if Louisville beats Boston College, they play North Carolina. If they beat North Carolina, they play Virginia. If they beat Virginia, they would play Clemson's the 3 or NC State, Virginia Tech, Notre Dame. Let's say they play Clemson. They already beat Clemson once, so why can't they do it a second time?
I think they need to beat NC State. They'd rather beat NC State than Clemson, but okay, keep going.
Well, they've already beaten Clemson.
Yeah, it's exciting. So you got to hope.
All right. So we're gonna hope for NC State. So Louisville beats NC State. Then out of the top half of the bracket, you're getting Miami, Duke, Pittsburgh. Probably one of those 3.
Yeah, they're in the play-in game.
How well would Louisville fans travel to Dayton?
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah, I think they would. I think people would go.
I think they'd buy it too. You have
the magic of March Madness, my man. There's nothing like it.
Yeah. Let's picture this. They win the ACC tournament. They win the play-in game at Dayton, and then they play 1 seed Purdue in Columbus.
Right, you're making my head hurt. You're making my head hurt. You're making my head hurt.
Would Purdue have to play a true road game?
No. Purdue fans will travel well. They're a 1 seed.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Louisville fans would show up, but that would be something. Well, Jack, this is fun. I presume you don't disagree with me. They would be in a play-in game as a 16.
Oh yeah, I agree.
That'd be correct. Yeah. That would be absolutely nuts. Well, Jack, this has been fun. As folks know, once the season ends around here, we tend to shift to once every 2 weeks. That's okay. We'll try to keep doing them once a week for a little while longer, just as the recruiting stuff is going on. But the cadence may start changing a little bit. You'd be surprised at how few people want to come on the pod and talk about this stuff these days, Jack. It's a lot of people been canceling for variety.
You throw anyone under the bus?
No. People have schedules come up and things happen. I watched 2 different species take dumps in my house today. So
was either one a dog?
One was a dog. One was a human. So
was it on a hardwood floor?
It was on a hardwood floor. The sound. The sound, Jack.
Was there a Cardinal bird logo on said hardwood floor? How much do I have to spell this out for you to get it out of you, Jeff? Come on.
Those are solid logs too. That guy.
Were you at the game when that happened?
I was not. I was watching that game on TV. But incredible. Well, Jack, thank you so much. Good stuff as always, my friend. And we'll catch you around the corner.